Hello, I'm Cosmic Zen, and this is going to be a destruction of the Noah's Ark story from a more scientific perspective. Now let's start with the origins of the Noah's Ark story. Archaeologists have shown that Sumerian and Babylonian cultures have versions of the Noah's Ark story that predates when Moses was supposedly in Egypt, and it stands to reason that if Noah was a prince of Egypt, that he would have been educated in these ancient religions also. So it's common sense to think that it's more likely that Moses used these ancient religions to put the Noah's Ark story into Judaic religion rather than God telling him about it. Now the next thing I want to mention is by far the greatest evidence against the flood story, which is the entire science of geology. Now certainly I don't have enough time to sit here and teach you all of geology, but to give you a basic overview, I want to talk about the geological layers of the Earth. Now, if you were to cut a tree and look at it and you count the rings, you can tell how old that tree is. Well, the same is true with the Earth and geological layers. You can start from the core of the Earth and go outward into the surface of the Earth and tell how old the Earth is and the different ages that the Earth has gone through. Now, some people say that these different levels of the Earth were stirred up during the flood. But if there was a flood and it was 6,000 years ago, that evidence would easily be found because the geological layers of the Earth go back 4.5 billion years. Now the greatest evidence against a world flood is the enormous lack of evidence supporting a flood. You can go through these geological layers and they coordinate with each other all around the world on all continents, and nowhere does it show that there was ever a world flood at any one time. Geological surveys in the Atacama Desert in South America has shown that it has never rained there, that it has always been dry since the formation of the Earth. Same with Antarctica. It's never rained in Antarctica. Another common argument put forth by believers for the flood was that Pangaea was destroyed by the flood. And Pangaea was when the Earth was all one landmass. But evidence shows through these geological layers that Pangaea existed 220 million years ago. Tectonic plates beneath the surface of the ocean show specifically the age and division of the continents. And it's nowhere near 5,000 or 6,000 years ago. We're talking millions and millions of years. These facts are easily found in any geology book. It's no secret. Another common fallacy brought forth by believers when asked where did the water go, they'll say that it's in Antarctica or the Arctic Circle or in the Himalayas, that it's in the snows of the world. But the facts are, as they've done geological calculations of the size and mass of Antarctica, and Antarctica would have to melt nearly 1,000 times over to cover the planet in water as put forth by the believers. The Bible specifically says that the waters were 15 cubits above the highest peak, which at that time they believed was Ararat. Ararat is approximately 5,500 meters high. Mount Everest, the real high point of the Earth, is 8,848 meters high. So in order for the Bibles to say that it was 15 cubits above the highest point, which would have been Ararat at the time at 5,000 something meters, it would have still fell 3,000 meters short of Everest. And if they're talking about the water being 15 cubits higher than Everest, well then Antarctica would have to melt 2,000 or 3,000 times over. So where did the water go? Another common problem in trying to prove the Noah's Ark story is that there's been a tremendous amount of hoaxes over the years. And all of these are well documented and easily found on the internet. Simply type in Noah's Ark discovery. Over and over expeditions have found things that they try to attribute to the Ark. But every one of them has been proven hoaxes. There's even a national park devoted to Noah's Ark where they think they found it at the foot of Mount Ararat, when the Bible says that the Ark was at the top of Mount Ararat, so it would be silly to think that it was at the foot of Mount Ararat. So let's talk about the practicality of the animals getting to the Ark. There are animals who could not have ever reached the Ark. Australian animals, kangaroos, polar bears from the north, the California condor, and other North and South American animals could have never crossed the ocean to get to the Middle East. Now, as I mentioned in the last video, the Ark itself is 450,000 square cubits. And cubits can be measured however you like. People try to tell me that it's 18 inches, but there's really no evidence to say what it is for sure. I did my calculations at a foot, but you can add 18 inches to a cubit if you like. Do some math. I did a lot. Here we go. On the Earth right now, there's approximately 15,000 species of mammals, 9,000 species of birds, 1,000 species of amphibians, and 6,000 species of reptiles. Now, if you don't believe in evolution, which I'm taking for granted if you're believing in Noah's Ark, that's 31,000 different species of air-breathing animals that would have to be on the Ark. And another common fallacy told to me by believers is that the Ark was bigger on the inside than on the outside, which is a physical non-reality. So if you're going to say that the inside of the Ark is bigger than the outside of the Ark by some miracle of God, there's going to be another several miracles that would have had to be done to pull that off. Now, out of all of those animals, I've chosen the elephant to do some calculations on to see how the elephants would have survived on the Ark for a year. Elephants drink 50 gallons of water a day. So 4 elephants, because there's Indian elephants and African elephants, and male and female of each, so that's 4 elephants, would have drank 200 gallons of water a day. So in a year's time, 1/6 of the Ark's area would have been filled with water just for the elephants, not to mention the other 30,000 species. Elephants eat about 100 pounds of hay a day, but they have 300 pounds of feces a day because of the amount of water they drink. Elephants eat about 100 pounds of food a day. 4 elephants would be 400 pounds of hay a day. This comes down to be, for one elephant, 36,500 pounds of hay for 1 year, and 146,000 pounds of hay for 4 elephants for 1 year. This comes down to 66.5 of those big round bales of hay that you see in the fields just to feed the elephants. Now, besides the hay to feed the elephants, there's hay to feed a whole bunch of animals, plus they have to have hay to put down on the floor to collect the urine. Otherwise, the urine's just going to be going all around the bottom of the boat. Now, hay has to be stored extremely dry. If it gets too wet, it becomes extremely susceptible to spontaneous combustion. So considering the amount of hay and having to keep it dry, also consider that they had to light up the Ark. The Ark only had one window that was a cubit by a cubit. And though it would have been extremely dim on the one level where it had the windows, there was 2 levels where it had no windows. So a big question throughout time was, how did Noah light up the Ark? Oil lamps have been around since 70,000 BC, so it's a safe assumption that Noah, if there was an Ark, used oil lamps to light the Ark. Now, according to my calculations, a regular oil lamp gives off a light radius of 10 to 15 feet. So I gave it the benefit of the doubt and gave it 15 feet, which means that on 3 floors that comes to about 338 oil lamps to light up the Ark. Now, it would have taken about 154 gallons of oil to run one of those lamps for 1 year. And it would have taken 52,052 gallons of oil to run 338 lamps for a year. So 52,000 gallons of oil stored near thousands upon hundreds of thousand bales of hay for a year screams spontaneous combustion. The entire Ark would have been like a floating matchbook. Now let's talk about waste for a moment. A 1,000-pound horse produces 34 pounds of feces a day and 2.4 pounds of urine a day, which would have had to been caught in hay and shoveled out the tiny window. An elephant, though it consumes 100 pounds of hay a day, produces 300 pounds of feces a day because of the amount of water it drinks goes into its feces and makes it heavier. So it's actually producing more waste than the food it's taking in. Now, some facts taken from the World Animal Park in Encinitas, California. They have 3,500 mammals, which is significantly less than the 31,000 species previously mentioned. They've recorded that they get 6,000 pounds of feces a day, including 2 dump truck loads just from the elephants. In a year's time, that comes to 2,190,000 pounds of feces in 1 year. And that is 1/10 of what was on the Ark. So total, you're looking at over 20 million pounds of feces produced by these animals in a year. And I didn't measure out the size of all the different feces, but I think it's a safe assumption that 20 million pounds of feces is extremely larger than the area of the Ark itself as a whole. It specifically says in the Bible that the Ark had one window that was 1 cubit by 1 cubit. And some people like to say that the Ark was open and that the bottom levels were for storage, like in the movie or something. But that's all crap. The Bible doesn't say that at all. The Bible says it was enclosed with 1 door, 1 window. It says that after the Ark landed on Ararat that Noah opened the Ark. So maybe at that time he took the roof off or something to get some air in there. But that was 10 months later, and they were on the Ark 2 months after that as well. So you can imagine with all that feces, Noah would have been having to put it all out that one window, him and his sons, constantly, every day, the whole time, and still would not have gotten done.